welcome to today's deep dive. I want you to think about a typical wedding album from maybe 20 years ago,
Oh, yeah.
right? There's this undeniable, honestly, kind of comical visual hierarchy going on.
Comical is definitely the word for it.
It really is, because you have the bride, and she is this absolute masterpiece of design and tailoring. Like, months of fittings went into her look.
Absolutely.
And then, you look over at the groom, and he's just standing there in this boxy, basic black suit.
Wearing those shiny plastic shoes that clearly don't fit.
Yes, the terrible shoes. And a generic tie. I mean, he looks like he was just rented from a catalog right alongside the folding chairs.
He essentially was.
Right. He's just a generic background prop in someone else's photo shoot.
Well, historically, it was a very utilitarian approach to menswear. For decades, tradition basically dictated that the groom's primary role was simply to, blend in.
Just don't stand out.
Exactly. The sartorial expectations were incredibly low, which, from a psychological standpoint, removed a lot of pressure for guys.
Yeah.
The mandate was literally just don't pull focus from the bride.
But if you look at the data and the source material we're pulling from for today's deep dive, that whole old rental tuxedo model, it's entirely dead.
Completely dead, yeah.
We are unpacking a massive shift in modern wedding aesthetics today. The groom has stepped out of the background and he's taken on a co-starring role.
A very fashionable co-starring role.
Exactly. And specifically, we're going to look at how digital platforms, most notably this tool called Weddizer, are completely rewriting the rules of men's formal wear.
It's fascinating.
It really is. So for you listening, whether you are, actively planning a wedding, attending one, or just fascinated by the intersection of digital tech and fashion, our mission today is to figure out how men are reclaiming the wedding aisle as their own personal runway.
The broader cultural context here is that we're witnessing this democratization of high fashion for men. It's not just about men deciding they want to look slightly better in pictures,
Right. It's deeper than that.
Much deeper. Men are realizing that fashion is a medium for deeply personal storytelling. They're using bespoke customization to articulate their identity, their heritage, and just their aesthetic values.
Yeah.
And the friction that used to prevent the average guy from accessing that level of tailoring, it's being completely dismantled by these digital ecosystems.
Right. But to really understand that digital bridge, I think we first have to look at the underlying motivation. Like, why are grooms abandoning that classic rental tuxedo in the first place?
Well, the rental was the default for generations because
Okay.
it was frictionless.
It was easy. You walk into a shop, they take 3 measurements, and you pick up a garment bag a week later.
Exactly.
So why take on the immense effort and, frankly, the expense of commissioning a bespoke designer suit?
It really comes down to the fundamental mechanics of garment construction. A rented tuxedo is essentially an industrial product.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning it's designed to fit a statistical average, which means, by definition, it truly fits no one perfectly.
Ah, right. It's trying to be everything to everyone.
Yeah. For example, the armholes are cut incredibly low to accommodate a wide variety of body types, and that severely restricts your movement.
Oh, so that's why guys always look so stiff when they try to dance in a rented tux.
Yes, you can't lift your arms without the whole jacket riding up. Plus, the synthetic fabrics they use are chosen for durability and, stain resistance, not for breathability.
Right. So you're basically sweating in a plastic bag.
Pretty much. But when a groom shifts to a custom suit tailored to his precise body measurements, it alters his entire physical geometry.
Wow. Physical geometry.
Yeah, because a higher armhole allows him to move freely. A properly tapered waist actually changes his posture.
Which fundamentally changes how he carries himself, right? Nobody feels like James Bond in a jacket that's an inch too wide in the shoulders and pants that are pooling around the ankles like an accordion.
Exactly. And beyond the fit, there's this whole material science aspect. The source material highlights a massive pivot toward premium natural materials.
Right, moving away from those stiff synthetic blends.
Yeah, fashion-forward grooms are choosing silk blends, fine cashmere, high-twist wools, because these fabrics actually breathe.
They drape naturally.
Right, they drape naturally over the body rather than hanging on you like armor. It's a sensory upgrade that prioritizes the groom's physical comfort throughout what is, let's be honest, usually a 12-hour event.
Yeah, weddings are marathons. But okay, I want to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Because commissioning a custom designer suit sounds like a very expensive vanity project.
It can definitely seem that way.
Right. So if the core issue is really just fit and fabric, Why couldn't a groom simply buy a standard off-the-rack wool suit from a nice department store and then just take it to a local tailor?
That is...
Like you get the waist taken in, hem the pants. Wouldn't that solve the fit issue without the massive designer price tag attached?
That is the exact logical leap most men make. But it completely misunderstands the architecture of a suit.
How so?
Well, taking an off-the-rack garment to a tailor is basically treating the symptoms, not the underlying structure.
Yeah.
When grooms turn to bespoke designer houses, they're paying for internal craftsmanship that literally cannot be retrofitted.
Okay, walk me through that.
So an off-the-rack suit uses what's called a fused canvas. It's essentially a layer of glue inside the jacket to give it shape.
Glue, just glued together.
Yep, and over time, or even just over the course of a hot, sweaty wedding day, that glue stiffens and degrades.
Oh, yikes.
But a custom designer suit uses a floating horsehair canvas. It's stitched in, and it actually molds to the wearer's body heat over time.
Wait, really? So it's literally adapting to the specific shape of the person wearing it?
Exactly. It's alive, in a way. And that structural foundation allows for these really subtle, profound aesthetic choices. You can dictate the exact role of the lapel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can choose structural design elements like contrasting fabrics or monogram linings that are integrated into the garment's creation rather than just stitched on as an afterthought.
Which brings us perfectly to the visual reality of weddings today. Because if grooms aren't defaulting to that basic black fused canvas rental, what are these tailors actually being asked to make?
Oh, it's a huge spectrum.
It is. Going through our sources, the sheer variety of aesthetics taking over the wedding scene right now is staggering. It really seems like the environment heavily dictates the style and fabric.
Context is absolutely everything in modern tailoring. I mean, choices are no longer made in a vacuum. A groom's look has to be in direct dialogue with the venue, the season, and the time of day.
And you see this play out dramatically with evening weddings. The sources note a massive spike in these deep, rich hues. We're talking emerald greens, burgundies, midnight blues, and specifically utilizing velvet.
Velvet is huge right now.
And conceptually, it makes total sense. Like, velvet isn't just a color choice. It's a texture that actively interacts with the environment.
Right, because velvet absorbs light rather than reflecting it. So in low ambient evening lighting or, under candlelight, a velvet jacket creates this profound sense of depth and luxury.
Something standard flat wool just can't do.
Exactly. Flat wool simply cannot replicate it. Velvet creates shadows and highlights based entirely on how the groom moves.
It's so cinematic. But if you take that exact same groom in his emerald velvet and put him on a beach in July...
Oh, absolutely not.
Right, that becomes a stylistic and literal nightmare. He'd pass out.
Which is exactly where the shift toward light and airy aesthetics comes into play. For outdoor summer weddings, we see tailors utilizing pastel shades, blushes, sky blues, pale beiges.
Sounds beautiful.
It is. And they're crafted from open weave linens or fresco wools. These lighter colors actively reflect the sun's heat, and that open weave fabric allows air to circulate, evaporating moisture.
So it's climate control built into the suit.
Yes, and the tailoring adjusts to the climate too, often removing the internal lining of the jacket entirely, just to maximize breathability.
Now, there's another trend mentioned in the sources that I find just endlessly fascinating, and that's this rise of cultural fusion.
Yes, that's a brilliant movement.
We're seeing grooms blend very traditional cultural garments with modern Western tailoring silhouettes.
It's a really sophisticated approach to heritage. Rather than wearing a purely traditional garment or, a purely Western suit, designers are hybridizing them.
It's kind of like a brilliant culinary mashup, right?
That's a great way to put it.
Like you take the structural foundation and the historical weight of a traditional Sherwani, the longer length, the mandarin collar, but then you apply the sleek, minimalist interior design principles of modern Savile Row tailoring. You pair it with a very slim fit, modern trouser, so you're getting the best of both worlds. You maintain the lineage of the culture, but the drape and silhouette are entirely contemporary.
That architectural approach honors the past while firmly acknowledging the present. And alongside that, we're also seeing the rise of the pure statement suit.
Oh, yeah. The bold ones.
Very bold. We're talking large floral prints, unconventional colors, highly experimental lapel shapes. This is the groom fully declaring that he is a focal point of the visual landscape.
Which is amazing, and I think this is but this introduces a massive psychological hurdle.
The decision fatigue.
Right. Hearing about the science of fresco wool or the lighting dynamics of velvet or the architectural drape of a modernized Sherwani, I mean, that sounds incredible in theory. But for the average guy listening, who usually just wears jeans and a hoodie to the office, this has to be completely paralyzing.
Oh, the cognitive load is immense.
Right. The paradox of choice is a real phenomenon.
Yeah.
When you are told you can wear literally anything, how do you even begin to choose the one right thing?
It's true. Men are historically very unaccustomed to navigating this level of sartorial freedom. Walking into a bespoke tailoring house blind is deeply intimidating.
I can imagine.
You're confronted with thousands of fabric swatches. You're asked questions about lapel widths and button stances that you literally don't have the vocabulary to answer.
Right, like, do you want a notch or a peak lapel? And you're just like, I want a suit.
Exactly. And the friction is so high that many men would simply retreat back to the rental tuxedo out of pure, unadulterated decision fatigue.
Which brings us perfectly to the core mechanism driving this entire revolution. How do grooms actually execute this transition without losing their minds?
That is the million-dollar question.
And our sources point directly to a specific platform called Weddizer. It acts as this ultimate digital bridge solving this exact problem.
Yeah, it's fundamentally rewiring how men approach wedding fashion.
So let's break down the actual mechanics of how a user interacts with this platform, because it's not just like a Pinterest board of nice suits.
No, not at all.
How does Weddizer functionally move a groom from, I don't know what a lapel is, to confidently wearing a bespoke designer suit?
So Weddizer is essentially a digital ecosystem designed to absorb all of that cognitive load we just talked about. It solves the intimidation factor by acting as an aggregator, an educator, and a logistical coordinator all at once.
Okay, so where does the user journey begin?
It begins with curation. Instead of doom scrolling random images on Instagram and just becoming completely overwhelmed by the noise of the entire internet, the groom inputs specific data points about his wedding.
Like what?
He inputs the venue type, the season, the time of day, and the broader aesthetic theme the couple has chosen.
Oh, I see. So if he inputs like outdoor botanical garden in August, the platform's algorithm immediately filters out the heavy velvets and dark wools.
Exactly. It starts surfacing those breathable linens and light pastels. It creates an immediate, tailored visual vocabulary for him.
That's incredibly smart.
It really is. It educates the groom on why certain fabrics work for his specific environment. But more importantly, Weddizer removes the supply chain friction.
Meaning finding the actual tailor.
Right. Once a groom identifies a style or a specific aesthetic he likes, the platform provides direct access to the top designers and bespoke tailoring services that specialize in that exact look.
So it functions as a translation layer. It bridges the gap between the guy who just knows he wants to look good and the master tailor who needs specific structural directives to make it happen.
Exactly. And it solves another major logistical anxiety, which is coordination.
Oh, right.
Clashing.
Yes. One of the biggest fears a groom has when deviating from a standard black tuxedo is that his outfit will clash with the bridesmaids' dresses or the floral arrangements, or most critically, the bride.
Which is a valid fear. If you show up in a maroon suit and the wedding colors are like coral and seafoam, that's going to be a disaster in the photos.
A total disaster. But Weddizer incorporates styling guides specifically aimed at party-wide coordination. It acts as this aesthetic safety net. So you aren't just guessing if your midnight blue velvet jacket is going to clash with the specific shade of lavender the bridesmaids are wearing.
Right. The platform visualizes how the groom's individual expression will fit within the broader canvas of the event's overall design. It allows the groom to be adventurous without being reckless.
That is so key.
But perhaps the most impactful element of Weddizer, based on the sources, is how it prompts hyper-personalization.
This is where I think the platform really shines,
Mm-hmm.
because these are the minute storytelling details that elevate a garment from just a piece of clothing into an actual heirloom, and they're details an average guy simply wouldn't even know to ask for.
Exactly. Weddizer actively prompts you to think about these things.
Like incorporating your wedding date subtly embroidered on the inside color of the jacket. Or it asks if you want custom initials on the cuffs.
Yeah, or it encourages the selection of fabric linings that might feature a pattern reflecting a personal hobby, or choosing cufflinks that nod to a specific cultural heritage.
It turns the digital interface into a prompt for emotional resonance. You're basically building a keepsake layer by layer.
And because the platform guides you through this sequentially, it never feels like you're drowning in options. You're just answering questions about what matters to you.
It's so cool.
Fundamentally, what Weddizer accomplishes is a behavioral shift. It takes a process that used to make men feel incredibly passive, where they just showed up and wore the uniform they were assigned.
The rented background prop.
Right, and it turns it into an empowering, curated experience. The groom transitions from a passive participant into an active style architect. By removing the friction of sourcing, educating, and coordinating, platforms like Weddizer are the actual engines driving this sartorial revolution.
They make the bespoke luxury experience accessible and manageable.
Exactly.
So looking at all this data, what does this mean for the future of the wedding industry? Because we're clearly moving permanently away from blending in.
Permanently.
Fashion-forward grooms are no longer following traditional mandates. They're actively setting visual trends.
Well, the source material indicates a few future trajectories. First, as grooms become more educated through platforms like Weddizer, we're going to see a massive surge in demand for sustainable and eco-friendly fabrics within bespoke tailoring.
That makes total sense. Men are caring more about where the materials come from.
Yes. Second, we'll see even deeper cultural hybridization as grooms use tailoring to map their personal histories. And finally, digital discovery ecosystems like Weddizer are just going to become as structurally essential to the groom's planning process as the bridal boutique has always been to the bride.
Wow. For you listening, this deep dive really reveals something truly compelling about the evolution of menswear. I mean, men's formal wear is no longer just about adhering to a dress code.
Not at all.
It's become a highly sophisticated medium for individual storytelling. It's an opportunity to express your values, your comfort, and your heritage on a milestone day, utilizing digital tools to navigate all that complexity of choice.
Which honestly leaves us with a rather provocative structural question about the future of weddings entirely.
Oh, I am always ready for a paradigm-shifting question. Lay it on me.
Well, think about it. If grooms are now utilizing digital platforms like Weddizer to ensure their outfits are as hyper-personalized, meticulously tailored, and visually complex as the bride's attire,
Yeah.
will the historical tradition of the bride's dress being a closely guarded secret until the moment she walks down the aisle actually survive?
Wait, wow, that is a brilliant point. If both outfits are highly complex artistic statements, keeping them completely isolated from each other for months seems incredibly risky.
Exactly. As groom fashion becomes an equal pillar of the visual landscape, we may see couples abandoning the secrecy entirely.
Like doing away with the first look surprise.
Right. They might begin co-designing their looks together in advance, using platforms like Weddizer to ensure their garments interact perfectly, creating a singular, unified artistic statement from the very beginning.
A complete reimagining of how a couple presents themselves to the world. We have certainly come a long, long way from the rented catalog suit.
We really have.